Hello everybody, welcome to Moments with God. Thank you so much for joining me today. If this is your first day on Moments with God, if this is your first video, then remember to click that subscribe button and also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications of all the videos. Immediately once the videos go up, you will get notified, okay? Also, remember to just give me a like if you like these videos so that I know that I should keep making more of them. Alright, so today we are going to look at Job chapter 6 all the way to chapter 20. Now this is a very interesting book. It's a bittersweet book, you know. It's one of those books where it just kind of humbles you. It brings you back to earth. It centers you and it makes you realize that only He is God and just accept it. But it is sweet in the sense that God shows His forgiveness, God shows His majesty and mighty warriorness. It shows that God is our redeemer, our protector, our provider, and if we lean on Him, He will never leave us nor forsake us. So let's get into it, shall we? Let's go. Okay, so I started the book with, as you remember last week, I started journaling by showing you how to journal and everything else that goes with starting a new journal and a new book for yourself. I am using the SOAP method, but I just added the praise section to that method so that I can praise the Lord because He's good, and His book, the Bible, His message, the Bible, it is just so good to reflect our own lives and our own relationship with God. This week I am going to just give you the background of the video first so that you can kind of see what is happening with this story. So let's go to it. The background of this story is that Satan and God focused on Job. So Job was the topic of the whole meeting. They had a little meeting together. Well, it was very big because it changed a man's life, a righteous man's life. So they met, and God boasted about Job's righteousness, and Satan had his, he just kind of objected to what God was saying. But then God decided, you know what, Satan, you are allowed to go and test Job. Job loses all his riches subsequently to that, but then he still praises God anyways. His wife is upset at him for saying that God is great nonetheless, whether He gives or He takes away, He is awesome. So she's upset. She's like, curse your God, forget about Him. You know what, He's not even here for us. His friends come to see him. They are shocked at his devastation and the devastation of his life. They spend about 2 weeks. Just sitting in complete silence, just shocked at how devastated Job's life is. So we then look at chapter 6. So when we look at chapter 6 all the way to chapter 20, we see that the main characters in this in these chapters are Job's friends, and we see how Job realizes two things in his suffering and as he's speaking to God. Firstly, he realizes that bad things happen to good people too. Okay, he also realizes the second thing, that God allows bad things to happen, and good and bad people all belong to God, and He can do whatever He wants, and He can use all of them. He doesn't only use good people, He also uses bad people. He doesn't only bless good people, He also blesses bad people. He doesn't only test bad people and bad things happen to bad people, but He also tests good people and bad things can happen to them too. So we have three friends here. We have Eliphaz. He's one of the more vocal friends, We have Bildad the Shuhite, and we also have Zophar the Naamathite. Now, Zophar is more silent, but then you see like a theme between these friends. It's like they discussed it and then they decided to come. The theme is that these are bad friends, okay? These are not the type of friends that you would like to have when things are going bad in your life, okay? These are the type of friends that will mock you in your misery. They will blame you for your misery. They will pretty much curse your life, okay, and hope that you die. These are not friends. These are by far the worst people, the worst 3 people that you could ever have in your life to come and visit you when you are upset, okay? So I started off the study with looking back at chapter 4 and 5 before I continued, because sometimes you just kind of need to look back, especially because I was doing so many videos that I needed to go back and see where I was with the study. So I looked at chapter 4 and 5, and the overview is that Eliphaz starts to speak to Job. Now he's the first to just, crack the ice, he's the first one, and he's doubting the goodness and righteousness of Job. We see verse 12, he says, he's talking about God, and he says, God frustrates the devices of the crafty so that their hands achieve no success. He says, he catches the wise in their own craftiness, and schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. So the poor have no hope, and injustice shuts their mouth. He says in verse 17, behold, blessed is the one whom God proves, therefore despise not the discipline of the Almighty. So he's thinking to himself that Job is responsible for his calamity. In fact, Job must have done something wrong in order for him to be cursed. Okay, so we now finally get to chapter 6. In chapter 6, we see that they do not want to be his friends anymore. They are disgusted by him, thinking that he is at fault. By looking at verse 21 of chapter 6, for you have now become nothing. You see my calamity and are afraid. This is Job now saying to him, okay, you guys are just like starting to become very mean. You see my calamity, you were my friends, and now that you see my calamity, you are getting afraid and you do not want to be my friends anymore. Verse 24 of chapter 6. Teach me and I will be silent. Make me to understand how I have gone astray. He is so humble to his friends, even though they themselves do not know his character. So he's like, okay, since you guys decided to come over here and, bad mouth me for my dismay and my misfortunes, how about you teach me? How about you teach me how to live a perfect life, how to be blessed and receive blessings? And they take him on. They take him on in chapter 7, in the rest of the chapters in chapter 6, because he is begging his friends to hear him out. He wants to keep his friendship with them to so that they do not think of him as a criminal. Have you ever been treated like a common criminal? Thinking, my God, I've done everything right, but this thing is not working and people are just treating me so badly. So in chapter 7, he's starting to hurt. We hear him as he's speaking in verse 2 of chapter 7. He says, like a slave who longs for the shadow, and like a hired hand who looks for his wages, while talking to his friends and God. So he's talking to his friends and he's talking to God, and he's saying, I'm like a slave, So I am allotted months of emptiness, and nights of misery are apportioned to me. He cannot even sleep. Listen to this. On verse 4, he says, when I lie down, I say, when shall I arise? But the night is long, and I am full of tossing till dawn. So he is like, he cannot sleep because of his misery. He's just oppressed. His wife has rejected him. He even goes on to say that his workers, he calls to his workers, but they're dragging their feet just to get to him. They're hoping that he would not call them, because they have rejected him. His life is completely empty. He's sitting down, scratching his boils, itching, and he has sackcloth on. That's and ashes, because that's how people fasted in the olden days. They would cut off their hair, put on sackcloth and ashes, just to show that they're mourning and they're just in misery. Okay, so we are going to jump to, so he's losing his sleep, and it's a bad situation. Okay, so we jumping to chapter 8, where now Bildad starts to speak. Okay, remember Eliphaz spoke to him, and he was just very negative. So now this other friend starts to speak. Let's hear what he has to say. How long will you say these things, in verse 2 of chapter 8? How long will you say these things, and the words of your mouth be a great wind? So now Bildad has no empathy. He has no empathy for Job. He has total disregard for him and does not want to sympathize with him. He's just saying, whatever you're saying is just wind, is just, when are you going to hear our words? We are literally sent here by the Lord to come and tell you that you have to stop this wickedness. Look what has happened to your life. Doesn't this prove that God is disciplining you? Stop acting so innocent and just listen. He says on verse 5, if you will seek God and plead with the Almighty for mercy. Verse 6, if you are pure and upright, surely then he will rouse himself for you. So he believes, he's believing in the fact that Job must have done something. He's putting God in a box, like I said last week. He's putting God in a box, and he's saying God blesses the righteous and God destroys the wicked. But he's not really fully understanding the character of God, that he is God. He can do whatever he wants, and he can show his greatness and glory however he wants. Even in this situation where he makes a really righteous man so devastated, he's still God, and he still has a plan in this situation. So I'm speaking quickly because there's a lot to cover. So it reminds me of that prosperity gospel, that if you follow Jesus and if you do what is right, and if you abide by him, you will definitely be blessed. But if you don't, you won't be blessed. But in actuality, sometimes we find that people do all the right things and they are not blessed. And we look at the wicked, and sometimes the wicked have all these blessings, and it just kind of sends our mind into this frenzy. Like, what is going on in the world? Know that during the process of our lives, there's so many things that happened, that tests and trials and tribulations, all leading to the glory of God. At the end of our lives, we see how God has been using all those to groom us and to grow us, because sometimes we would not come back to him. Sometimes he's using these trials and tribulations so that we can come back to him, so that we can realize that he is God, so that we can start worshiping him better, so that we can forget about our things and focus on him. Sometimes he's saying, stop looking at all the things that you have, focus your mind on me. I need you, I need you, I need you. Okay? And that's how he calls us to him, by kind of like twerking our lives a little bit, so that we can, have a discomfort, not completely destroying us to death, but just kind of taking away those things that are distractions in our lives, so that we can pray more. I found that the best times that I prayed more, that I concentrated on God, that I worked hard on trying to have a relationship with God, and being more mindful about the time that I spend with him, journaling more, reading the Bible more, praying more, worshiping more, and actually considering him more often, was when life was really, really hard for me. Okay, so God can also use those times to kind of bring you back to him, because he's just like, his ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So don't only think that he will bless you, okay, when you are righteous. He can bring a little test. He can put people out of your life that are not good for you, that you can't see. I pray that you guys may ask him to reveal people to you. And when he reveals someone to you, don't go and on a frenzy and try to hurt the person. Pray for the person, pray for yourself, and move on, okay? Because he is a God that loves all people. Okay, so now we look at chapter 9. Job answers his friends and pleads with God. Now we see that when Job is answering his friend, he will answer his friends and then plead to God all at the same time. He'll say, guys, listen, it is not me. I don't understand what's happening. I am so devastated. No one is there for me. I'm just utterly confused about everything because I have done nothing wrong. And then in that same tone, he would then look at God and say, Father, please just like let these people know that I have done nothing wrong to them. So that's just the type of dialogue and the type of narrative that the writer of Job has taken, and the type of person that Job is. He will talk to you and then praise God at the same time. He will talk to you and then talk to God at the same time. Like for example, if let's say you have a naughty child, and you would say, no, don't do that, sit down, don't be this naughty, and then immediately you would turn and say, Lord, please help me with this child. That's exactly how he is. He's so super connected with God that he does not reserve like a separate time where he would then talk to God and be like, God, please. There are those people that just want their own time with God. But he is just like immediately, if you get something good, praise the Lord God Almighty. I've seen women like that. They're just praising the Lord right in the middle of their lives, And if something bad happens, you see an accident, oh Lord, please make sure that they are safe. That's the type of person that he is. So he's talking to his friends, he's talking to God, and it's all just in one chapter. Okay, so now this is what he says. Truly I know that it is so, but how can a man be in the right before God? It is as if this is the first time they see where a man can be punished for no reason. So if you are a Christian, you know how Jesus Christ would say, hey, you will experience troubles. This is a fallen world. There is lots of troubles in this world, but it is all for the greater good. It is all for the future glory of mankind. It is all for you entering heaven and being tested. But in the Old Testament, it's as if they have like this misconception of God. They only see God for who he was, how he blessed for doing good and how he cursed for doing bad. So there's a confusion between them. So in verse 9, chapter 10 to 23, we're just gonna go through it. It says, verse 12, who will say to God, what are you doing? Verse 15, though I am in the right, I cannot answer. 19, if it is a contest of strength, behold, he is almighty. He is almighty. Though I am in the right, my own mouth would condemn me. So Job is praising God. He is aware of his misfortune and he is pleading with the Lord. Verse 22, it is all one. Therefore I say he destroys both the blameless and the wicked. So this is the first time he's speaking and speaking and speaking, and then he realizes, oh my God, it's all the same. Doesn't matter whether you're wicked or whether you're righteous. God is God, and he can destroy whomever he wants to destroy. Okay, so that was the first revelation that I was talking about. That there are two revelations in this that he is going through, and when he is going through this tough time, he realizes that, okay, firstly, God can destroy whoever he wants to. There's no difference between righteousness and wickedness. It's all just, God can work and use both of them, okay? But it's better to be righteous. It's better to be on the right side of God, because at the end of this, we see how God redeems his life. This is just, to get us to the end point, and the end point is really good. So stay tuned for that one. Okay, so we are at chapter 10. Yeah. Okay, So Job continues to plead with the Lord. He says, I will say to God, do not condemn me. Let me know why you have contented against me. Verse 2. And then verse 4 to 8, Job is questioning God in anger and frustration. So at first he was very faithful to God. He was, the Lord is my redeemer. He has taken away and he will surely bring back. But now he's just like being frustrated because his friends are now starting to speak to him in a manner in which is degrading and they have literally ruined his integrity by their words. Okay, so we see this throughout the narrative of the story. Now chapter 11, Zophar now starts to speak. The quiet one, Zophar, starts to speak. He's the Namathite. So he says, should a multitude of words go unanswered and a man full of talk be judged right? So now he's saying that Job is just talking, as he's just explaining how he's righteous and he's done nothing wrong and he doesn't understand. He will plead with the Lord because they don't understand. Teach me how to be righteous. Teach me what you guys know that I do not know. He's saying you talk too much, and we are not going to keep quiet. We are going to speak. So for you say, my doctrine is pure and I am clean in God's eyes. But oh, that God would speak and open his lips to you, and that he would tell you the secrets of wisdom. For he is manifold and understanding, which we know that. Know then that God exacts of you less than your guilty deserves. Okay, so this may be true, but Job is not guilty at this time. Job is not guilty, and they are treating him as if he is guilty. So this is the third friend that has spoken, and still, man, they are just condemning him. Okay, so verse 11 to 11, chapter 11, it says, for he knows worthless men. When he sees iniquity, will he not consider it? So he is insulting Job now and mocking him and his integrity, using words like stupid in verse 12, unfaithful, not praying, unprepared in verse 13. In verse 14, he says that he's wicked. In verse 20, he says all that there is left for you, Job, is to die. So these friends, oh man, it's a tough time for Job. Okay, so chapter 12, the Lord has done this. So Job still praises God. Job still takes his plea to God and says, you know what, the Lord is the one who has done this. The Lord is the one who will answer me. The Lord is the one who hears my cry, while these friends are just like attacking, like on another level, verse 13 of chapter 12. With God are wisdom and might, he says. He has counsel and understanding. If he tears down, none can rebuild. If he shuts a man in, none can open. If he withholds the waters, they dry up. If he sends out the waters, they overwhelm the land. With him are strength and sound wisdom. The deceiver and the deceived are his. Okay, so this is the second revelation that he gets. In all this, I notice that Job speaks praise and wisdom all the time, and he's humble. He's so humble to his friends. He's like, teach me. They're like, oh, you've done this. This is going on because of what you've done. And he's like, teach me a way in which I should do this, because I don't understand. I've done nothing wrong. And then he's at the same time, he's like, Lord, please help me. Lord, please, whatever they're saying, please show me the way, please. And he is pleading for his friends and for his friendship. He's like, friends, please show me. Friends, please don't leave me. Everybody has left me, not you too, And at the same time, he's processing whatever is happening and starting to realize that, you know what, God is not what I thought he was. God can use wicked and righteous people. He can bring bad on righteous just as much as he can bring bad on the wicked. God owns all things. So now this is the second revelation, that God owns everything. God is in control of everything. God, righteous and wicked people belong to God, so he can use the righteous and the wicked. So he is coming, he's realizing, he's learning, he is growing, and these friends are just stuck on this one version of who God is. So Job continues to give praise to God nonetheless. Okay, we're moving on up, people, we're moving on up. Okay, so now chapter 13, we see now a turning point in his faith. So from chapter 6 until 12, we see how he's now receiving this condemnation, and he is pleading with God, and he is learning, but he's learning in frustration and in sadness and in depression. Chapter 13. Now Job chooses to have hope in God. This is now, he's making a decision. He's like, I've been depressed too long. You have condemned me too long. I am now choosing to have faith in God. Okay, there is a moment in life where you've just been going through this like vicious cycle of just depression and hopelessness and weariness, until you rise up like a phoenix from the ashes, and you're like, you know what? I choose to have hope in God. Okay, so still I will hope in God. He is praying to God and answering them all at once. So he says, what you know, I know. Now he wants to talk back to them. He says, I still have my integrity. Yes, I am a poor man now. I used to be rich, but you know what? You get to a point where you're like, okay, that's enough now. That's enough. You have played with me long enough. I know that I'm down. I know that you are higher in status and in money, but you know what? Stop it. So that's where he is. He has faith. He's not letting them push him around, you know. He says, verse 2 of chapter 13, what you know, I know. Verse 3, he says, but I would speak to the Almighty, and I desire to argue my case with God. Enough with you, I will talk to God. Verse 4, he says, as for you, you whitewash with lies. Worthless physicians are you all. You are worthless physicians. You have not said anything good to me. You have not said anything righteous to me. You have not been a friend to me. In fact, you have made my whole life worse than what it was before you came in. Okay, you have just like, I was low, but you have put me under. Okay, so verse 5, oh, that you would keep silent, that would be your wisdom. If you were just quiet, that would just, in fact, that would be better to me. It was better to me that you were just sitting down next to me and just being there. Sometimes as a friend, you don't have to go in a bad situation. Don't go and just make things worse. Sometimes all that a person needs is just for you to just sit down and be there. Okay, and if you are just too fidgety to sit down, make him coffee. Go grab some coffee with your friend and just sit down and just listen. You know, don't go and just be a bad friend telling them how they deserve this, how this is their fault, and all that craziness. God is showing us how to be better friends through this. And God is showing us how to forgive through this book. I know you don't see it now, but you will see it in the near future, in next week's video, as well as all the other videos that are coming up, because this is going to be a good story. Though it's bad, it's going to be a good story.